Well, there's a lot of research going on in that. I mean, I would say the best overview of the research available right now is The Shallows by Nicholas Carr. I just linked it in the chat there. Um, that's the best overview. I mean, he's citing a lot of other work, but it's relatively recent, within the past year, and it really does bring you up to date on how it's affecting our brains. I think I think that the internet is affecting us in more substantial ways socially than through our brains. And the reason why I say that is because a lot of the reasons that we do the things we do with our technology are socially driven or culturally driven. And you can really see this very quickly if you travel much and get into cultures that are radically different than ours. If you look at how people in other cultures use different technologies, they sometimes use them very differently. So they're not going to affect the way they think in the same way they affect the way we think with the way we're using the technologies. The other aspect of this is that it's actually, once a technology is embedded in a cultural system, that use of the technology is much more difficult to change than if it's just in your neurological system. Our cultural systems are actually much more robust and slower to change than our neurology. So, for example, there are studies that show that while there are fairly significant differences between somebody who, like in the wiring of the brain, there's significant differences between somebody who plays a lot of video games versus somebody who doesn't. Mm-hmm. Within 5 days, those differences can go away. So if you take a bunch of people who don't play video games and you set them down to play video games, 5 days later, they have a lot of the same neurological connections that is changing the way we think is legitimate because our brains are plastic. But that plasticity is so great that we can actually reverse those changes very quickly. Now, some things are more complex, like reading alters our brain pretty dramatically, and it really takes a long time to grasp reading. That's why children don't just immediately begin reading. So reading is one of those things that has really dramatically changed our brains. And if you're ever in a non-literate culture, people who can read and people who can't read, and cultures who are based around reading versus cultures who are not based around reading, there's a lot of dramatic differences there. Those have been pointed out for a long time by anthropologists. There's some controversy about what it really means and whether you can attribute what you can attribute to writing versus what you can't, but there are definitely some significant differences there.